Associate Law Studios, Jacob Media Partners invites you to spend an hour of your day celebrating your faith.
We acquire a fundamental right that can never be taken away from us. The right to hope.
In collaboration with the Archdiocese of Philadelphia and the Catholic business leaders of the Delaware Valley, including LaSalle University, First Trust Bank, and todayisagooddday.org. Enjoy Voices of Faith. Learn from your leaders. Be inspired by your neighbors and find the power of grace in your life when you need it most. The spiritual Voices of Faith begins right now.
And a good Saturday evening, everyone, and welcome in for the very first time to a very, very special program here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. The name of the program, Voices of Faith. Along with Jim Brown, I'm Joe Krause. Jimmy, the best way to begin or the best way to start this show is for you to define Voices of Faith and how we made it to this point.
Well, Joe, the history in short order is that years ago, a small group of friends put this Catholic leaders breakfast together because of the troubling news regarding some abuse in our Catholic churches. It was a horrible point in time, and we were hearing that nasty message fairly often. So we decided to start a breakfast to focus on all the good work happening in our Catholic faith community, in education, the local hospitals, social services, etc. And it's been fantastic. With COVID-19, we're not sure about, gathering at the Union League with 360 people. So we decided to expand the program and create something really special, which is clearly what we're doing here. Wonderful.
And no doubt about it, Jimmy. And coming up on this program, we're going to start the opening segment. Words from Archbishop Perez. And then I'm not going to let the audience know when the Archbishop actually delivered this homily. But it is amazing to say, as we lead into that audio, Jimmy, that the words of Archbishop Perez are fitting to what's happening right now.
The Archbishop is an incredibly special leader. At our last breakfast, Father Rob talked about, the concept of humility and gratitude, service, and providing hope for people. And I will tell you, just my humble opinion, our new Archbishop is just what the doctor ordered.
We begin Voices of Faith on this Saturday with the words from the man himself. Here's Archbishop Perez.
He said, tonight, we acquire a fundamental right that can never be taken away from us. The right to hope. It is a new and living hope that comes from God. It is not mere optimism. It is not a pat on the back or an empty word of encouragement with a passing smile. No, it is a gift from heaven, which we could not have earned on our own. Over these weeks, we have kept repeating, all will be well, clinging to the beauty of our humanity and allowing words of encouragement to rise up from our hearts. But as these days go by and fears grow, even the boldest hope can dissipate. Jesus' hope is different. He plants it in our hearts. This hope, the conviction that God is able to make everything work unto good. Because even from the grave, he brings life. You see, the answer to that question, do you believe, in particular in the Gospel of John, is central: belief. Because our beliefs actually guide the way we live, how we speak to each other, how we treat each other, how we respond to crisis, like the one that globally we're experiencing right now, how we respond to the storms and the ups and downs of life. If we believe and we have the hope that shines out of that empty tomb, the hope that's not just optimism, as Pope Francis tells us, but it's actually a gift from God. If we believe, then everything we do is different, because it comes out of what we believe deep within our hearts. And so once again, as we now stand before the empty tomb, do you believe? And the answer to that question will determine how you live, what you do on Sunday mornings, what you do right before you go to bed as you pray to the Lord in thanksgiving for your day. It will determine how you react to the ups and downs of life. It will determine actually even how you live your last minute and draw your last breath. Because if we do believe, then we live with hope.
Thanks for listening to the Catholic Business Leaders radio special, Voices of Faith, presented in part by Givnish Funeral Home and by First Trust Bank. Later in the show, we'll introduce you to our Yo Philly, Philly Proud community nonprofit. But now, we pause to spotlight miracles. These babies are walking sacraments. Today is a good day. Here's Dr. Jerry Cleary and a look at Today is a Good Day.
There's only one word that comes to mind to describe a parent's journey in the NICU, and it's love.
Today is a Good Day is a nonprofit that strives to provide the love Dr. Jerry Cleary just referenced. They're an organization that was created by a husband and wife who experienced firsthand what it means when the miracle of birth occurs too soon. The mission of Today is a Good Day is to provide personal and financial support to families who experience the neonatal intensive care unit. We've come to know the acronym NICU. Founders Martha and Paul shared the start of their personal story.
On Sunday, November 14th at 12:35 and 12:36, Claire Josephine and Mary Gladys joined us over 4 months early at just 23 weeks, 5.5 days. And 1 week into our NICU journey, we met a then 3-year-old little boy who was a former 23-weeker, and he was such an inspiration for us and continues to be to this day. Just 2 weeks after our girls were born, Mary Gladys earned her angel wings too soon. And
we realized that there was a big gap in care for parents of premature babies. The babies, Claire in particular, was taken incredible care of by the wonderful doctors and nurses at Abington's NICU.
For information, for details, for support, and to learn how you can become part of Today is a Good Day, visit them on their website, todayisagoodday.org.
we still take Claire back to Abington Hospital and to other hospitals to meet with current families who have their babies in the neonatal intensive care unit. And what do we do at those listening sessions?
We do talk about Claire.
We also have a great group of volunteers who take their NICU graduates back.
I bet it makes people feel a lot like they're not alone.
Today is a Good Day has already delivered 3,600 care packages to support families who unexpectedly become part of the neonatal intensive care unit.
One piece of advice that I give NICU parents navigating the NICU journey is that you're not alone.
For information, for details, for support, and to learn how you can support Today is a Good Day, visit them on their website, todayisagoodday.org.
These are not typical or standard times, and the TAC Benefits Organization is not your typical or standard business firm. The company is owned and operated by Michael Cleary, and Michael and his team are not your standard check the box, put in your time, and go home kind of people. Here's the thing. A different approach creates better outcomes for TAC clients. Dedication, knowledge, integrity, teamwork, community, creativity. It all matters to the folks at TAC. And as we face some incredible challenges in our world today, TAC has decided to do something incredibly different and positive in our community. They've created the TAC Hometown Heroes program for recognition of people doing little things to make a big difference. The first recipient of the TAC Hometown Heroes program plaque is the Marshall Street Elementary teachers, aides, and therapists of the Multiple Disability quality student classrooms for the exceptional work they do with these special and inspirational children. Their focus at every level is inspiration, education, and therapeutic achievement. And for this, they're the TAC Hometown Hero for the month of June. Keep doing what you do best every day because the folks at TAC want to celebrate you.
I don't think boxing can redeem your life. God can only redeem your life. Boxing can be used as a tool to help you in your life.
And back here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT, it's our maiden voyage of Voices of Faith, along with Jim Brown. I'm Joe Kraus. We welcome everybody into what should be a spectacular 12-month process, Jimmy Brown, in terms of being able to deliver an inspirational message. And I find it fitting that we begin with Chapter 1, nestled in the comfort of the Rock Ministries. And I want to bring Buddy Osborne into the conversation. And Buddy, first welcome you on behalf of Jim Brown, on behalf of myself, and all of the listening audience. Welcome, sir. It is a real pleasure and a real honor to be here, to be in your house.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that a lot.
Tell the audience, Buddy, if you will. I think it's the best place for us to start. Who is Buddy Osborne?
Wow. Okay. Well, believe it or not, I just had a birthday. I'm 61, in which I would have never imagined in all my years that I would reach 61 years of age, which I'm grateful for that. Thank the Lord for that. I was born and raised in Kensington, right on this block, on Kensington Avenue. I lived right next door to the Rock Ministries. Who would have known that I would open up a ministry, at the age of 45? And born and raised in Kensington, left when I was 26, came back to Kensington when I was 45 to open up this ministry that's called Rock Ministries of Philadelphia, to work with kids that are caught up in the streets and from involved in you name it. And we've seen thousands of kids. We stopped counting in 2016. We were over 10,000 at the time. We stopped counting the kids, but so many kids have come through these doors at the Rock, and that's kind of where my focus is at this season of my life.
The Rock is built on what?
Well, the Rock is built on Christ. The Rock is built on the faith that God has a purpose and a plan for your life. I often say that, when you look at the book of Romans and you look at Paul, how he wrote this book, he wrote it while he was in Corinth, and he wrote to the Roman church who was under siege, and he says, listen, he says, you're going to go through trials and tribulations, and he says, but what that does, that produces perseverance. And it also, not only when it builds perseverance, develops perseverance in your life, it produces character. And then character produces hope. And so when I see a kid coming in here with nothing going for them in their lives, if you notice around the ring, that's what we have. We have, tribulations produces perseverance, perseverance, character, hope. And that's the gist of our ministry. Anyone that comes through our doors, Joe, is introduced to a relationship with Christ.
What blows me away, Buddy, about the work that you do is that oftentimes folks in our world talk about doing the right thing, but to be with a gentleman, you this afternoon, and really see that work in action is stunning. I was blown away by the HBO special that Jim Lantley did with you in terms of just the message that you deliver to these young folks, that message of hope. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I think, we're in a crisis right now, we really are. We're
no doubt.
Not only as a country, but I'm going to just narrow it down to a community, which is Kensington. And I don't think there's a more fitting time than having this opportunity, this platform to explain to you, what I feel as though the Lord has placed on my heart to see happen. I'm reminded of something in Scripture, and it's in the book of Nehemiah, and it's an Old Testament book. And It was written, a few hundred years prior to the birth of Christ. But it goes this way, that in the Jerusalem was overran by the Babylonian Empire, and they were all 2.5 million people were taken from Jerusalem and placed in Babylon in captivity. And so this kid, Nehemiah, was born in captivity. So for 70 years they stayed there. And then after 70 years, they were released. A remnant was released back into Jerusalem, which they went back. And this guy named Ezra, who was considered a priest, he was teaching the Bible. And so, but for 15 years, he did the best he could. But what was going on? The walls were falling down, and the gates were burnt with fire. And so every time they tried to rebuild the walls, something else happened. And they're like, how are we going to do this? And so what happened, now this guy Nehemiah is born in captivity. He gets a government job. He is the cupbearer to the king, King Artaxerxes. That's a government job. I often say he's got a good pension. He's got hospitalization. He's got an annuity. I mean, he's living large. I believe he's wearing gabardine, pants. He's got snakeskin shoes. He's good. But so when his brothers and his friends came from Jerusalem, I often say that he's lounging. His crib is right next to the castle of the king because they're squared away. They're friends because he's the cupbearer. Anytime. If I'm your cupbearer, you don't eat unless I eat.
Wow.
Because when I drink the food or eat the food or drink the wine or whatever, before I give it to you, I got to live. You know what I mean? So Nehemiah is on his day off. And then what it says is that they came to him. And you know what's amazing, what I find, Jim, Joe? He didn't say, look at how good I'm doing. I'm living large. He said, no. How's it going back in the neighborhood? How is it? How are you guys doing? You know what they said? Nehemiah, not good.
Oh.
And he says, well, what's up? And they said that the walls are burnt down and the gates, they're all. And so what it says that he became so distraught in a sense, but he wept, he mourned, he fasted, and he prayed for 4 months. Now, it's a capital offense to go in front of the king with a sad face. In other words, you can be decapitated.
Wow.
And so what happens? He has his chance. He goes in front of the king. Just picture this. And the king says, Nehemiah, why is your face so sad? And he basically says, your face would be sad too if the house where your father was born lies in ruin. He was so convincing to this king. The king said, well, what can I do for you? And you know what happened? He blessed Nehemiah with a Home Depot card. He gave him safe passage all the way back, a 3-day journey to Jerusalem. He gave him wood to rebuild. But when Nehemiah gets back to Jerusalem, it says that he went out at night to survey the problem. The trash was so heavy it was up to the belly of the horse. And then what he does, he prays. And then he built. God provides all these people from that community. And next thing you know, they raised up. It's the biggest construction job that was ever done in the history of mankind. No disrespect to the building trades, all right? I'm telling you, all right? But this was the one that will beat any building trades job ever.
Let the record show. We're not offending.
Right.
Hey, buddy, I have a question for you, just because I got to get this. So, 10,000 plus kids. Are there 3 or 4 or 5 stories of a kid that has been influenced in a way that was a game changer? Is there something that comes to your soul that says, wow, this kid Tommy Smith or Bobby Jones or whoever it might have been?
Well, yeah. I mean, and there are people now that are emulating Nehemiah because he could have quit when he saw that problem. He could have ran, but he stayed, and they rebuilt the walls. This is what I'm going to finish with it. He rebuilt the walls in 52 days. With all the families of the neighborhood, and they had a trowel in one hand and a sword in another. It was an amazing story. And so, to answer your question, I'll give you a story. We have a kid who came to us at 17 years of age. and he was slinging drugs on the block. And basically, we got a hold of him. We start to teach him boxing, and one thing led to another. He starts to become really good at it. And he goes on and on and on. And next thing you know, he gets married. Today he has 3 children. And his son, who is 14, just turned 14 years old, he's a 9-time national champion. Yes, nine-time national, and he's 14, and he's expected to win the Olympics.
Wow.
When he reaches the age of 18. We have many kids who have become, trade guys that come from the Rock. We have kids that are we have a core group of kids that are in a Bible study constantly, that they have a desire to learn who God is, to learn their faith, and, faith, so to me, that is just, that's the key. The key is to teach these kids, to mentor these kids, to disciple these kids in the truth. I often tell the kids, when you feed your faith, you starve your doubts. And that's what we do at The Rock. And we have many kids, Jim, that fit that story.
Yeah, been on that journey.
Buddy Osborne is our special guest here on our very, very first show, the chapter 1 of Voices of Faith. Back in a moment on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
Portions of today's Catholic Business Leaders radio special, Voices of Faith, are proudly being presented by Michael Cleary of TAC Benefits, Linda Rosanio of Think Traffic, Mike Troy of KTB Benefits, and Lexus of Chester Springs, our dear friend Angelo Valletta, and Liberty Fox Technologies. Now, Uncommon Coaching with LaSalle basketball head coach Ashley Howard.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ashley Howard, head men's basketball coach at LaSalle University. I'm extremely excited to be a part of this broadcast. In today's world, loaded with challenges and some real issues that are huge in our community, I wanted to take this opportunity to get a chance to address some of those issues and for you guys to get to know me. As a coach, I had a chance to work with fabulous young men every day on and off the court and develop our next generation of young leaders. A huge part of leadership is having the ability to be understanding, having the ability to learn, and having the ability to seek change when needed. I would love to take this opportunity to talk to you about my perspective on some of the issues that are going on in our world today, as I think it's vital for us to grow as a community. The elephant in the room in today's culture is the issue of race, police brutality, and just insensitivity towards the lives of Black people. Let me start off by saying that all of these issues go hand in hand in some way or another. But for starters, I think we have to educate ourselves first on Black history and why the African American community is so sensitive to some of the things that are going on in the world today. It's amazing to me that when the life of a Black person is taken, there's little to no reaction from the masses in our country. But as soon as there's riots, as soon as there's looting, then it becomes an issue. I think the issue has to become, for our country and for our humanity to take the next step, is to respect the lives of all people, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic. Everyone's life matters. But in our system and in the Black community, it just seems as though Black lives are lost at the hands of law enforcement more times than others. So that's why, as a race, Black people feel the need to make a change. I talk to my players every day about the importance of respecting one another, using their platform to make a difference, valuing the opportunities that we have, and always remaining faithful in everything that we do. We're extremely blessed to be athletes, as I'm extremely blessed to be a coach and work at a university that's faith-based and have the opportunity to make an impact on the lives of young people. I also respect the opportunity that I have to work for a great leadership under Colleen Hanich, Brian Baptiste, and other people who are very instrumental in the operational workings of LaSalle University. I deliver this message with caution, as I know it's a sensitive topic, but I want everybody to know that without unity, there is no community. And I take a great deal of pride in the community that I'm a part of, both LaSalle, Philadelphia, and in the world today. I appreciate this opportunity to speak. I look forward to Chapter 2. And as always, go Explorers. Thank you.
Food rescue is just what the doctor ordered in today's crazy times. They help eliminate hunger, promote health, and serve. Simply put, they rescue food for those in need. They're not a food bank. And how do they do all this during recent challenges? Well, they focus on three things. 1, they deploy a hero technology platform to organize the entire process. 2, they work directly with food donors to pick up food in a critically timely manner. 3, they then coordinate the last-mile transport network of volunteers and get the food to those in need, nonprofits, schools, medical centers, community programs, and more. And here's the best part. They track the data, measure the positive impact, and get things done. They are a results-driven organization. Food Rescue educates and elevates. They're fast, reliable, safe, protected, and effective. Learn more at phillyfoodrescue.org. That's phillyfoodrescue.org.
It wasn't prison that changed my life. You see, a woman wrote me a letter, and she said, "Buddy, Christ has you in the palm of his hand. He has a plan for your life." I didn't understand what that meant. And then I started to read the Bible, and then one thing led to the other. And I'm thinking, man, this is really amazing.
And back here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT, you know, Jimmy Brown, I can't help but be so thankful to be sitting here in Rock, at the Rock. Rock Ministries is where we are in Kensington, introducing the listening audience to Buddy Osborne. In the midst of all of the chaos and all of the looting and all of the fires and all of the damage that has occurred this week, not only in Philadelphia, Buddy, but around the country. Here sits the Rock, untouched, unscathed, unmarked by any graffiti artist running up and down the avenue. How come?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it's just it's God's hand on our ministry, Joe. I believe that with all of my heart. I mean, we look at, this is a safe haven for kids to come in. Many of our kids who live in this community are living with post-traumatic stress disorder. We have multiple shootings all the time around here. We have folks that are living in their houses that it's like a prison. They just can't go out. And one of the things that I feel, Joe, with all of my heart is what can we do next? And what's happening now is there's an initiative that started. It's called Kensington's New Voice. And that's what we at The Rock are doing at this point. In fact, yesterday I knocked on 75 homes on the doors, and I spoke to 90% of the people with all of our kids that have been raised up, and said to the folks, listen, when you look at the park, McPherson Square, it's the center of town. It's riddled with thousands and thousands of needles. There's human feces all over the place. You smell urine. It's disgusting. It's despicable. And my question is, why? Why is that allowed to happen? And I talked to every person there, and you know what? They are so excited to see what this voice is going to be. Because listen, Kensington, at this point in time is marginalized. When you think of Kensington, what do you think of? You think of prostitution, you think of homicide, you think of drugs. Well, there's more to it. There's people here that are faithful people that are looking for help. The walls of Kensington are down, and the fires have burnt the gates, no different than Nehemiah. So Nehemiah went in with a plan, and I feel as though that's what's happening now. We have to see a voice. This doesn't happen and I love Philadelphia. I'm born and raised. You don't see it in Fishtown. You don't see it in Port Richmond. You don't see it in Bridesburg. You don't see it in Northern Liberties. You don't see it in Society, but you see it in Kensington. And one of the things I've noticed with the folks around and not have a fear of their child being stuck with a used syringe needle or stepping in human feces. So we're saying, that we're going to start next Wednesday because of the curfew. We're going to start tonight. We're going to have prayer in the park every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Every Wednesday, we're going to be there. We would have been there tonight. That was our launch day tonight, but with the curfew, we want to honor that and respect that, We don't want to be above authority.
It's fascinating. I started our conversation with a compliment, and just being here, Joe referenced we got here a few minutes early, and for our listening audience to know this, as we arrived, there was an incredible storm outside, trees blowing and wind and rain, and as soon as I walked into this facility, I felt a presence. I mean, it's really different in here, my friend.
Wow.
And you've been here how many years now?
18 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 18 years.
Yeah, it's a legacy. And oftentimes, Buddy, my observation is, again, folks talk about making a change and doing something different. They talk about it.
Yeah.
It's really a pleasure to be here this afternoon and kind of see this in action. Joe and I were lucky enough to spend a moment with Gator and Sean as we entered the building. And
he's a good guy, Gator.
He is, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's the best.
Yeah. But talk again about the people that have impacted this, what I'll call change, this movement that you have. And it's especially critical today in the world that we're sitting in.
Jim, I guess I could wrap it up this way. So we have church service every Sunday, and I said I wanted the church to hear from some folks on the stage prior to us teaching the word, prior to open up the Bible and teaching the word. So we picked three people and their wives, 3 men and their wives. Well, 2 of them were pregnant. Well, the 3 women, former prostitutes.
Oh.
All the men in the back, all of them did time. And guess what? I married in each of the couple.
God bless.
And now their lives, it says, as for me and my household, we shall serve the Lord.
Love that.
Faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God. And this is what their lives, that's the foundation that they have now. So for me, that's the legacy that I want to leave. It's not Buddy Osborne. It's JC, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the faith. That's the rock. That's what the rock represents. It represents faith. And when you have faith, man, when you have the power of God in your life, it says if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, it's a small seed. It says you can move a mountain. That's what God's word says, not me. But I often tell people you got to bring your shovel, because sometimes it takes work to develop your faith.
Yeah, Buddy Osborne is our special guest here at Voices of Faith, our Chapter 1. We're so glad to be at Rock Ministries along with Jim Brown. I'm Joe Krause. Buddy, let me ask you this. With all of the chaos that's going on, if I picked you up and dropped you in the middle of the insanity on Saturday, the middle of the craziness on Sunday. And I'm not talking about the protesting. I'm talking about some of the craziness that resulted from the protesting, the looting, the smashing, the hurting that was going on. What would you say?
That's a very appropriate question, and I think the simplest answer, Joe, would be, for me in my life, what would Jesus do? What would Christ do in the midst of chaos? How does he calm a storm? And I think that, when we look at this thing through the eyes of faith, you get more done than you do with bricks and sticks and clubs. So I think that more is done on your knees in prayer, and than it is, with hurting people and hurting property and destroying lives. That goes for every one of us. Every one of us.
Yep, Buddy. It's so funny as I reflect on what's occurred. It's so complicated. You know, and there are no simple answers, which is one of the reasons, you know, my Catholic faith has kind of basically steered the ship for me, because it all gets back to, you know, prayer changes everything.
Yes.
You know, it all gets back to, oftentimes, think about it, most of us, many of us, Buddy, we spend an inordinate amount of time trying to earn an income or do the push-ups or run the marathon. Are we working that faith-filled muscle? Are we actually spending a moment reflecting on this material? One of the things I think that you've done phenomenally with is asking people to consider that. Can you speak to that for a minute?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, I think that people, when they embrace the faith, as you said, you know, in your own Catholic faith, it's a beautiful thing, you know. Yeah. When you embrace your faith, you remove doubts, you know. And I think of what it says in 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sins and heal their land. And I think the power of prayer will completely eradicate and change the landscape of the next generation. You know, I mean, I think protests, I mean, I like you said, it's protests is, you know, that's your right. What a country we live in, you know.
Amen.
But incorporate some prayer, it's a wrap. You know what I mean? You know, it's a wrap. So
last question, Buddy, before we get into the commercial break. It's inevitable when we check into the world that we're going to leave. When Buddy Osborne leaves the world, what will they say?
Wow. You come up with some great questions. How do you get these questions? Oh, man. Well, there's two things. I right away I go to Scripture, and I love this. It says that that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. So I know that when I die, I'm not taking a dirt nap. I'm in the arms. And I want to hear those words, well done, my faithful servant, enter into the joy of the Lord. You know, that's what I want to hear when I hit heaven. But what I want people to say, I think that's entirely up to, the Scripture says you'll know them by their fruit. And I think that, you know, I don't want people to see me. I want people to see Christ in me. I don't want them to see me, you know, like, you know, Buddy was this, but no, look how Christ transformed this man's life. A man that once was in prison and facing, you know, some serious years and all, but yet, 25 years ago, changed my life completely. And now a ministry where we're helping thousands of kids, you know, that can't be, I can't make that up. How do you make that up? I mean, come on. I mean, it's only because of my faith and my compassion and passion for people to know the truth. And it says in Scripture, when you know the truth, it sets you free. And when you're free indeed, brother.
Well done. Well said. Rock Ministries is the name of the location. Buddy Osborne is the name of the man. Back in a moment.
Voices of Faith continues now with an inspirational endorsement from Dan Selecki of Givnish Funeral Homes.
As we operate our life celebration homes throughout the Delaware Valley during these challenging times, we're in a frontline first responder type of role. Our employees are like our family, and their safety and well-being are paramount to us. They need to feel safe and protected during these trying and complicated times. We strive to balance their needs while creating transformative experiences for the families and communities we are honored and humbled to serve. We encourage all of our employees to perform charity and service work in our neighborhoods during normal times. Then all of a sudden, this virus hits. It's been crazy for us at times, but you know what else? It's been very inspiring. Our employees working hard, not letting fear stand in their way. The families we serve suffering the loss of a loved one in a tumultuous time. Our team still volunteering in the food lines for those in need. These are just some examples of how we press forward, facing fear with courage, knowing we are being looked out for. It's truly amazing to watch. I'm very excited to support Catholic leadership. Whether you're a hardworking bishop, parish priest, police, fire, or EMT personnel, a nurse working in the emergency room, or a cashier or stock person in a grocery store. We all have lots to be thankful for, even as we face and lead through challenges. Real leadership happens at every level in a healthy community. I've been with this organization for a long time, and I've never been more proud. John Givnish owns and operates this organization with a real vision to empower the team to do the right thing. I believe it's important to note that John's grandfather started the business in the 1920s. His grandmother, aunt, cousins, nieces, nephews, and 5 siblings are or have been in this business. We now have the 4th generation of Givnish family members working with our families. John and I grew up together. We're educated in the Catholic school system and as such have developed a moral compass which guides our decision making. And so have many of our folks. Maybe that's why we have been so successful over time. We are neighborhood people who know how to care for one another, and we try to always do the next right thing. I'm sorry to go on for so long, but I really think it's time for all of us to come together and make things better for the other family down the street. I will leave you with this quote from St. Bernard. I'm paraphrasing, but it goes something like this. Acquiring knowledge for knowledge's sake is curiosity. Acquiring knowledge for acknowledgement is vanity. Acquiring knowledge for service to others is love. So as you go about your day today, strive to lead and love as St. Bernard did, in service to others. May God bless you all.
Support for the Catholic Leaders Program is coming from many sources, but none more generous than the team at Kistler Tiffany One Digital. Mike Troy from KTB will be acknowledging significant leaders in our community during the next 12 months. And the first recipient of the Significant Leaders Award goes to Jack Troy. Jack is a stand-up leader and a champion and will be attending Carnegie Mellon University this fall, where he will study to be an engineer. Not a surprise, as Jack has been building things since he was a little kid. He is an exceptional student and athlete. In addition, he is always looking for ways to help the guy down the street. We are excited and thrilled to share that Jack Troy is the first Significant Leader Award winner. Best of luck and many blessings to Jack as he enters the next chapter of his amazing journey.
And back here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Welcome back, everyone, to Voices of Faith. Wow, Jimmy Brown, this has been an incredible show. One more great segment in front of us. You heard about it throughout the show. We're going to introduce everyone to our Yo Philly, Philly Proud nonprofit spotlight, all presented by First Trust Bank.
And Joe, just to put a little color behind that, First Trust is one of those local operations that really distinguish themselves in the community. I can, just off the top of my head, I was talking to Timmy Abel, who's kind of the backbone of the support here with his entire team. He shared that Richard Green had stepped up right when the COVID-19 broke and offered to donate $1 million to local nonprofits and charities just to help them get over the hump. And I'm not sure there's too many business people in the community that have that kind of generosity. And everyone I've met, in the First Trust family, they're just special people.
Let me bring in Andy Kucher, who's the Executive Director of Students Run Philly Style. And following Andy, I'll introduce you to Scott Sorella. But Andy, welcome in to Voices of Faith, if you will, for the listening audience. Quick outline of Students Run Philly Style.
Sure, and thanks so much for having us. Students Run Philly Style is a mentoring program that's based on this idea that you help a student set a big goal and give them a little support behind them, and they can achieve anything. And the way our program works is we pair Philadelphia and Camden youth with adult volunteers, and they train side by side for a long distance run, whether that's the Philadelphia Full or Half Marathon or the Blue Cross Broad Street Run. And ultimately, when the student crosses that finish line and all of the work that they put in to get there, and all of the adversity to overcome, everything kind of comes together, and those lessons that they learn through that process really translate to the rest of their lives, whether it's academics or aspirations or, the whole gamut of socio-emotional impacts.
Andy Kucher here, the Executive Director. I want to bring in one of those volunteers, Scott Sorella, VP of First Trust Bank and a 6-year volunteer of the Students in Blue. Scott, I know we don't have a lot of time today, but let me get you to at least talk about a couple of bullet points about the nonprofit.
Okay. My role is a running leader with Students Run Philly Style. It's twofold. Through First Trust Bank, I was introduced about 6 years ago. Peggy Lime-Comer, she's a COO, took me to an event, and I was hooked from the minute I got there. But my role is, my team is Girls High Central, and these kids are warriors. And I'm going to give one example. The marathon, Philly Marathon back in November 19, it rained, snowed, sleet, wind, cold, and these kids were warriors. And our role throughout the program through the whole year is getting them ready for that. Watching those kids finish that day, it was so impressive because, again, we work with them throughout the year. And there's good days, bad days. They show up for training, and it's like, don't want to do this today. But like I said, the finale for the season was the Philly Marathon. And, again, those kids were warriors throughout that whole 26.2 miles because, again, the weather did not participate. It wasn't on our side, but it was well worth it, and the smiles on their face when they get that medal at the end.
All right, great stuff from Students Run Philly Style. Andy and Scott, we will invite you both back to Voices of Faith, where we'll be able to do a more extensive interview with you on one of our future shows. We thank you very much, and we thank First Trust, our Yo Philly, Philly Proud, Spotlight of the Month, Students Run Philly Style. Jimmy Brown, as we close out the show today here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT, we're going to close at a time in the city and in the country where there's a lot of chaos and a lot of trouble. We're going to close the show out tonight with a beautiful rendition of the National Anthem. Set the stage for the listening audience. This was a live performance. This was performed at the Union League. This was at the big 2019 Catholic Business Leaders Breakfast. You pick it up from there.
Well, Joe, we were fortunate enough to line up with a young gal who has a boatload of talent, and you're going to hear that in a minute. Olivia really lit the room up. We had 363 businessmen and women who were absolutely stunned at the talent that she brought to the room. It was a special day.
All right, good stuff. As we get ready to say goodbye here on this edition of Voices of Faith, our very first, we will be here monthly for the next 12 months and look forward to changing the narrative, influencing those around the Delaware Valley who will consume our message in a very different way. That's going to do it for our very first edition of the show. On behalf of Jim Brown, on behalf of Frank Canal, who helped me put it all together, I'm Joe Kraus. Believe in hope, everyone.
Oh, sing, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rent the air, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner get to wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Voices of Faith is produced in collaboration with the Catholic Business Leaders of the Delaware Valley and the Archbishop of Philadelphia. And a special thank you to the Philadelphia Boys Choir, a Jacob Media J.P. Brown Communications production.